try not to get a copyright strike. This is Adam from Tungsten Amplification. Welcome to my workshop. It is Saturday night, and I got a live amplifier on my bench. Let's take care of that first. No shocky. I'm going to be connecting a alligator clip from one of the plate resistors, or one of the plates actually, to the chassis. And as you can see, voltage going down. Today's been a cool day with the stereo. I've got about 5 or 6 hours of listening time on it today, and I made a couple modifications that we are going to talk about right now. Let us refer to the schematic. So one of the things I did today was to add a 1K grid resistor on the input in between the junction of the 470K and the 0.1 microfarad capacitor. And I did that on both channels. That's a typical mod, or a typical part that's in there for stability in most amplifiers. On the guitar side, you think of the Marshall 18 watt, has an 8.2K. I believe the Vox amplifiers have those resistors in them. Pretty much most any amplifier with sound design should have that. But in the 1960s, when you were trying to sell kits for a profit, that's the sort of thing you would leave out if you had a good PCB board design, which Dynaco did have. Very nice layout on those. So what's that look like down here? There's 4 of them in the circuit. Let us zoom in a tad. So these are the 0.1 microfarad capacitors. And on this terminal here, this one is meeting this 470K resistor, which is going to ground. I've got a wire, that blue wire right there, comes out up to this terminal, and there's the 1K resistor going to pin 2 of the EL84, which is the input grid. On the other side, we've got the 0.1 microfarad coming out to this terminal. It's meeting the 470K, its own 470K, going to ground. And then at that same junction, we've got this 1K coming over to pin 2. Zoom out just a tad. The other side is the same thing. Here's the 1K right here, and here's the 1K right here. It's hard to say sonically what that did. I made 2 changes at that step, and I pretty much put those in more for stability of the tubes and of the circuit than I did for any sonic purposes. It's just good practices. The other thing I did today was definitely for sonic purposes. Let me adjust you all here real quick. And we're going to take a look at the schematic again. I was watching a YouTube video, and I had seen some prior comments on one of the forums where it was suggested at this point here to add a capacitor and a resistor going to ground in order to shunt some of the highs. On this amplifier, pin 6 is underneath this resistor here. It's where this resistor is going to. But you can see that piece of heat shrink. There's a wire in there connecting it to pin 2. In fact, let me zoom in on that a little bit. You can see right here. So from pin 2 of that tube, I've got a 47 picofarad and a 10K ohm resistor going to ground. So right here, is the 47 picofarad, and then right here is that 10K going to ground. And you can probably see on the other side, here's the 47 picofarad, and there's the 10K going to ground. At this point in time, I'm only running the Dynaco portion of the circuit, minus the entire negative feedback loop, and with the few changes that I've outlined. my first stage preamp, which is a knockoff of the Universal 4S preamp, is completely out of the circuit right now. So we're just coming in through the RCA jacks, these 10K resistors into the 250K audio pot, and that's branching out to the input of each Dynaco channel. Sounds great. The changes today, especially the silver mica going into the 10K, took out some sibilance and just smoothed out the highs in a way that made it way more musically pleasing to listen to. The speakers I have, let me see what model they are. These are Klipsch SB2, which is a bookshelf speaker. I think it's got like a 5 or 6 inch woofer, and it's got a horn tweeter. And the horns can be a little bit piercing sometimes. So I have to step away and come back and make sure that my ears are hearing the stereo and not hearing the horn elements. I have them pointed out away from my head by about 30 degrees on either side, because they're actually more pleasing off axis than they are on axis. Other than that, that's probably the last update for today. I will keep working on this. You know, I'd like to add negative feedback just to provide more stability, but in all honesty, the amp's not unstable. I can turn it up to 10. There's no oscillation of any sort that I can hear. There's no motorboating, no squealing. The high frequency is clear. The bass is, you know, it's strong for what this amplifier is. The value of the coupling capacitors could be increased to bring more bass into the circuit. But right now it's present, it's decent. You know, it's more of a mid-range, lower mid-range into the middle of the mid-range is kind of the focus. You know, it's a really punchy sound. So I don't know if the negative feedback circuit is even going to be necessary in the end. You know, right now the amp is not suffering from not having it. You know, it could lower the total harmonic distortion, which I don't have a way to measure. But I suspect it would clean up those figures. I need to get some resistance blocks in here so I can hook this up to the scope and see what the waveform looks like, because I really don't have any idea right now. I'm just doing this all by ear. I thought I was going to say something else, but I believe I've lost my train of thought. Okay, well, I guess so. That's going to be it for tonight. Hope that everybody has a safe Saturday evening, and I will catch up with you when I've got more to talk about on this amp. Have a good night.